Hello everyone, this is Pal Ponder on Weather coming at you with another video. In this update, we're going to be talking about a major snowstorm for the Mid-Atlantic as well as the Northeast, and also an ice storm to talk about. So before we do get started, if you do like weather related content, please subscribe to my channel as I will upload daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. And I do ask you to share this video with your friends and family. They're going to be impacted from this event. So here's the latest advisories, watches and warnings as of this morning on Tuesday, and we are 24 to 36 hours away from this event. So we've already got winter weather advisories happening right now in Oklahoma, parts of the Texas Panhandle, as well as Kansas. And this is the system that's going to bring the major snowstorm to the Mid-Atlantic as well as the Northeast. So we've got winter weather advisories already posted for northwestern North Carolina as well as Virginia. And then getting into those winter storm warnings filtered into Virginia as well as West Virginia and parts of Washington, D.C., and then getting into Pennsylvania as well. And so these will just continue to extend as we get closer to the main event. So here's how it's all going to play out. Here's the latest NAM. I'm going to use this one because it's a great short-term mesoscale model, and I'll go over the different models at the end of kind of what they're looking at. But I do think this has a pretty good play on how this is actually going to play out. So here is your latest surface map as of this afternoon. We've seeing that snow fly into Oklahoma and as well as the Texas Panhandle into Kansas. But as this kind of moves east, I mean, I think the thinking from yesterday, it looks like it's going to tend to slow down just a tad, or if not, get stronger faster over the Ohio Valley. And I think this system comes in what they call neutral tilt instead of positive tilt. So that basically kind of increases the snowfall rates into Indiana as well as Illinois. And I do think this will continue moving east, shifting the actual snowfall amounts a tad bit further west than what we are looking at the last 2 days. So I think that's how the system is going to play out. This is the initial surface map of what it's going to look like coming up on or overnight tonight into Tuesday night. You can see this surface low really starting to get its act together, spreading some snow into parts of Missouri, into mid Illinois, as well as Indiana. Where I think they were seeing 1 to 2 inches of snowfall. Now I'm thinking maybe 3 to 4 inches of snowfall in this area. And then we've got to develop an ice storm out ahead of this surface low. As that's going to be ice, freezing rain changing over to ice and kind of sticking on the ground in parts of North Carolina as this system continues to move eastbound. And now then as it continues to move east, this will be, about 9 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, it starts to really get its act together. You see that changeover effect. There's going to be a surface low that's going to be developing off the East Coast. And there's also going to be a warm nose. And within that warm nose, typically you have the air start to rise, but also start to heat up in the upper levels about 3,000 feet up. And so that's going to see a transition into more sleet than actually than snow. And so on the south side, you'll have rain, but then as it falls to the surface, the temperatures will be cooling aloft as this low kind of deepens. And then that's where that freezing rain is going to come into play. So I do think a significant ice storm with power lines coming down and widespread power outages come into play in parts of northwestern Carolinas. I do think places like Charlotte, it's going to be like right on the edge. So I'm thinking more rain for you guys and not any a lot less impacts. But areas to the northwest, and especially as you get into Virginia, that's going to be the major player where you could get anywhere from a quarter to a half, in some spots, even more ice on the ground as this develops. And then you have that transition snow zone where it develops to all snow as this cold air kind of deepens into Washington, D.C., and to getting them to northern parts of West Virginia by then. But as this continues to move eastbound, I think we're going to be hitting a kind of a sweet spot over this, what they call this deformation zone. And so there's going to be a surface low that's going to be hanging out off the coast. There's going to be a lot of warm water by the coast, these sea surface temperatures, and this will help aid the impact and the intensity of this rainfall, as well as the transition to snowfall, because I think you're going to have increased water vapor, and along that deformation zone, you'll have what they call dynamic cooling come into play. And then as the atmosphere cools aloft, this will be rapidly changing over to all snow, if not heavy snow, and probably snowfall rates, I'm talking 2 to 4 inches per hour. So it's going to be almost whiteout conditions by the time nightfall hits, and especially as we get into overnight hours on Wednesday. And this will continue moving eastbound. So this is about midnight by Wednesday night. This is where I think, man, this can really start to develop some extreme snowfall rates, something you haven't seen in a long time. And a lot of these places could be seeing the biggest snowfall since December of 2009 for December. So this looks like a significant event, especially in areas around central and southern and eastern PA, where I do think, man, you could be seeing, like I said, seeing that zone. And if this surface low tends to slow down and if not stall, that could really set the stage from some really hefty amounts. So, I mean, you're talking 2 to 4 inch per hour snowfall rates that last for hours. So that'll take no time at all to accumulate quick and really pile up some hefty double-digit snowfall totals for this area. But I do think this storm gets its act together a little bit faster. So I do think the shift a little bit further west puts like Pittsburgh more into play, where I'm thinking they were going to be receiving like 6 inches earlier on in the event. Now I'm thinking increasing maybe potentially 9 beyond the conservative. Could be on as much as a foot of snow wherever that deformation line kind of lines up as it shifts more eastbound. So, but yeah, getting into places like Jersey, where I do think there's on the south side, you're going to be transitioning to more or less all rain. But as soon as you get into central and especially northern New Jersey, I think it's a significant event for you guys. And as the wind speeds really pick up, so you're talking, 2 to 4 inch snowfall rates per hour. And then these winds start to really pick up offshore. So overnight on Wednesday, I mean, these are wind gusts, approaching upwards of 50 miles an hour. So, I mean, you could be seeing like somewhat whiteout conditions, if not like blizzard watches and warnings. So I would not be surprised as we get closer to this event, because they're not going to issue a blizzard watch until 24 to 36 hours out. So we're still not met that criteria yet. But I do think I would not be surprised if we have blizzard watches set up somewhere along northern New Jersey, as well as eastern PA, where I think those winds are going to be really at the highest. And so as this continues to shift eastbound, now we're talking places like Rhode Island, getting into New York City, getting into Philly, getting into Long Island. I mean, we're almost a foot of snow in Long Island, New York. So this is something you haven't seen in a while. These heavier amounts getting into Boston. I mean, places like Massachusetts, Connecticut, southern portions of Vermont, New Hampshire. That's where we're going to be starting to see those heavier snowfall totals. Getting into northern parts of getting into New York by then. A good swath of 12, 18, if not almost 2 feet of snow setting up somewhere along the lines of central PA to northern New Jersey to southern New York, get into parts of Massachusetts. I do think this zone is going to be your heaviest snowfall rates from this event. And as this continues to shift east, this is by early Thursday morning as the sun starts to rise. This will bring your heavier snowfall totals getting into Vermont, New Hampshire, and in southern Maine as this kind of starts to wind itself down and push offshore. And then especially by Thursday afternoon, I think this all comes to an end. So we're talking about a 24 to 36 hour event. But some of these snowfall rates are just going to be extreme, where that transition zone takes place. And let me just show you some of these totals. And here's the ice that I'm talking about. This is the earlier on event of this ice storm setting up for northwestern, the Carolinas, North Carolina, getting into western parts of central and western parts of Virginia, as well as southeastern West Virginia, and getting into Washington, D.C. a little bit. But where that transition zone, that's going to stop and then go to all snow into PA. So I'm not expecting almost any ice into PA. It's going to be pretty much all snow. And here's the latest NAM as far as snowfall totals. So I think this is a pretty good guesstimate. So yeah, some spots could see up to 2 feet of snow in central and eastern parts of PA. Now, this particular model, this actually does shift it a tad bit further west, and so it puts a little bit higher amounts when what they were showing 2 days ago into central Indiana, 2 to 3 inches, getting into the Ohio Valley of a 3 to 6 inch swath. And then starting to get into PA, where I think that zone, maybe Pittsburgh, maybe 9 inches, and then a little bit heavier amounts as we shift further east and especially south, and getting into northern parts of West Virginia, and then northern parts of New Jersey, where I'm thinking over a foot. Hartford, Connecticut. I mean, getting into Long Island, over a foot of snow. So a lot of these places, you could see easily a 12 to 18 inch swath. And then isolated amounts of, almost 2 feet of snow. So here's the latest European model. Now, the European model has been fairly consistent. And so I think this is going to be kind of a cross between the Euro and the latest in the NAM, where I think that zone is going to be anywhere from almost 2 feet in central PA. And this is based off a 10 to 1 ratio. And so I'll show you the liquid amounts here in a second. But yeah, this heavier swath puts it all the way into Massachusetts, getting into Connecticut, and it's well offshore into Long Island. So this is more or less going to be a more of a coastal event rather than an interior event. And here's the liquid. So we've got a lot of precipitation to work with, and where that zone is going to come into play, 2.25 inches, a 10 to 1 ratio. That's why they're showing, almost 22 inches of snow. But if it's a lot more cold air kind of dams into the system, we could be looking at 15 to 1 ratios. And now you're talking 30 plus inches is not out of the question from this storm. So I wanted to kind of show you even like more the conservative type numbers versus the kind of the extreme numbers of what this system, especially if this actually tends to slow down and stall off the coast overnight. I mean, it's not going to take long to pump in 2 to 4 inch snowfall rates. I mean, if you get 3 to 4 inch, 3 inches at 6 hours, that's 18 inches already. And so if it lasts for 9 hours, I mean, so that would be 27 inches. So, I mean, yeah, you could get some pretty heavy snowfall rates in a short amount of time from this system. That is the potential that's on the table. And here's the latest GFS model. Kind of implies the same thing. This model's been tend to push a little bit further south. It hasn't been nearly as bullish as the Euro model, but it still puts the placement of essentially central PA into play. And here's the latest Canadian model as well. Kind of implies the same thing. It has the system moving a little bit faster than the other systems. So I'm not a little bit more in agreement from this particular model, because I think it's a little bit too progressive and too fast. So that's why they're having the snowfall totals a little bit higher further east, rather than pushing back. So my latest thinking is the combination between the latest NAM as well as the Euro. And I think this is how that system's going to play out. But some pretty hefty totals coming up for you guys. The initial setup for the ice event for the Carolinas, as well as Virginia and West Virginia, and then transition into a heavy snow, if not blizzard-like conditions for Wednesday into Thursday. And as this continues to move off east and kind of settles down by later on Thursday night. So I appreciate you guys watching. watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.